Have you ever thought, if I could just get this one thing, I'd finally be happy? A better job, more money, a better home. You finally get it. You're happy for a while. Then you start wanting more. And again you think, if I get that, then I'll be happy. The same thing happened to Nora. She kept wanting more, until she lost what she once begged to have. Once upon a time, an old fisherman named Samuel lived with his wife Nora in a tiny hut beside the sea. They were poor, very poor. Their roof leaked when it rained. Their wooden bucket had cracks. Some nights, dinner was only a small piece of bread and whatever Samuel managed to catch that day. Still, every morning Samuel carried his old net to the shore, and every evening Nora waited to see what he brought home. One cold morning, Samuel walked into the shallow water and threw his net. He waited. Then he pulled. The net barely moved. Samuel wrapped the rope around both hands. "Come on!" He pulled again. Whatever was inside felt heavier than any catch he had made before. His heart began to race. Maybe today is finally my lucky day. He dragged the net onto the sand. But when he opened it, there was no pile of fish, only one. A tiny golden fish. Its scales shone under the morning sun. Samuel stared at it. Then the fish spoke. "Please let me go." Samuel nearly dropped the net. "You can talk?" The fish moved weakly against the rope. "Return me to the sea, and I will grant you whatever you ask." Samuel looked toward his poor hut in the distance. He thought about the empty food shelf, the broken bucket, the leaking roof. Then he looked at the frightened little fish. After a moment, he opened the net. "I don't need payment for letting you live." He gently placed the fish back into the water. It disappeared beneath the waves. Samuel returned home with an empty net. Nora was waiting. "What did you catch?" Samuel smiled. "You won't believe me." He told her everything. The golden fish, its promise, and how he had released it without asking for anything. Nora stared at him. "You asked for nothing?" Samuel shook his head. Her face changed. "Samuel, look around you." She pointed toward the empty shelf. "We hardly have bread." Then toward the broken furniture. "Our house is falling apart. You had one chance to make life easier, and you asked for nothing?" Samuel sighed. "What should I have asked for?" "Bread!" Nora threw up her hands. "Just bread would have been enough." Samuel looked at her. "Bread? That's all." So Samuel returned to the shore. He felt foolish calling for the fish after letting it go freely, but eventually the golden fish appeared. "What do you need?" it asked. Samuel lowered his eyes. "My wife says we have almost no food." "Go home," said the fish. "You will have enough." When Samuel returned, Nora was standing beside a table covered with fresh bread. Her eyes were wide. "Look at this!" Samuel smiled. "We won't go hungry now." For that evening, Nora was happier than he had seen her in months. She cut the bread carefully. She smelled it before eating. "This is all I wanted," she said. Samuel remembered those words. "This is all I wanted." The next morning, the handle on their old bucket broke. "We can repair it," Samuel said. Nora looked toward the sea. "Why repair it when the fish can give us a new one? It is only a bucket." Samuel hesitated. But once again, he walked to the shore. Soon, Nora had a new bucket. She was delighted for a little while. A few days later, rain came through the roof. Nora placed bowls beneath the drops. She looked around the hut. "Why are we still living like this?" Samuel frowned. "What do you mean?" We have a fish that can grant anything." She pointed toward the wet ceiling. "We shouldn't be living in a broken hut." Samuel remembered how happy she had been simply to have bread. But Nora was already imagining something better. "Ask for a proper house." Samuel went back to the sea. The fish granted the wish. When Samuel returned, the old hut was gone. In its place stood a beautiful wooden cottage with strong walls, a dry roof, a warm kitchen, and a real bed. Nora walked from room to room, touching everything. "This is beautiful." Samuel smiled. "Now we have everything we need." Nora looked at him. "Yes," but the answer came slower this time. Weeks passed. One afternoon, Nora stood outside watching wealthy travelers pass their cottage. Fine clothes, servants, beautiful horses. She looked back at her own home. For the first time, it seemed small. That evening, she said, "Samuel, I have been thinking." Samuel stopped eating. He already knew those words. "What now? Why should we remain ordinary people?" Samuel stared at her. "A few weeks ago, this house was your dream. It is a good house. Then what is wrong with it?" Nora looked toward the window. "Nothing is wrong with it," she paused. "I simply think we could have more." Samuel said nothing. "I want a grand home," she continued. "Servants, fine clothes. I want people to respect me." "Nora, we have food." "I know." "A safe home." "I know." "Then why isn't that enough?" Her eyes hardened. "Because enough for you does not have to be enough for me." So Samuel returned to the golden fish. This time the sea was no longer completely calm. Small waves rolled against the shore. "My wife wants to become a great lady," Samuel said. The fish looked at him for a moment, then answered, "Go home." Samuel returned. The cottage had disappeared. A huge mansion stood in its place. Servants hurried through its doors. Inside, Nora sat in a beautiful chair wearing expensive clothes. Samuel smiled softly. "Nora." She looked at him, then looked at his old coat and wet boots. Her smile disappeared. "Don't come in here looking like that." Samuel stopped. "It's me. I know who you are." She glanced at the servants. "You embarrass me." Samuel could hardly believe what he was hearing. He had walked beside this woman through years of poverty. Now, after a few weeks of comfort, she looked at him as if he belonged outside. "Nora, do you remember when we had no bread?" She turned away. "That was a different life." Samuel was given a small room away from the main house. Days passed, then weeks. The mansion that had once seemed unbelievable became ordinary to Nora. One morning, she called for Samuel. "I want to be queen." Samuel stared at her. "You already have more than anyone around us." "Exactly, and I still have to answer to people above me." "Nora, go." So Samuel returned to the sea. The waves were stronger now. The golden fish appeared. Samuel could barely look at it. "She wants to be queen." The fish answered quietly, "Go home." When Samuel returned, the mansion had become a palace. Guards stood at the gates. People filled the courtyard. Nora stood on a high balcony wearing a crown. Everyone bowed when she walked past. For a moment, Samuel wondered if this would finally satisfy her. It did not. Power became normal even faster than comfort had. Soon, Nora stopped noticing the palace. She stopped noticing the servants. She stopped noticing the people bowing. Things that once would have amazed her became part of another ordinary morning. Then one day she called Samuel before her. "I am tired of being queen." Samuel almost laughed. "Tired? I want something greater." What could be greater? Nora looked toward the sea in the distance. "I want control over the ocean." Samuel's face went pale. "What?" "I want every ship to answer to me." She stood. "Every wave, every creature in the sea, and the golden fish itself." Samuel stared at her for a long time. "You want to rule the very creature that gave us everything?" Nora stepped closer. "I don't want to ask anymore. I want it to answer to me." Samuel finally understood. There would never be a final wish. Not because Nora had not received enough, because nothing had ever been allowed to remain enough. "Nora, stop." She froze. It was the first time he had spoken to her that way in years. "We once prayed for bread." "We once prayed for bread." Nora said nothing. "You cried with happiness when our table was finally full." Samuel looked around the palace. "Since then, every time you got what you wanted, you called it enough." He looked directly at her. Then enough became too little. Nora's face tightened. "Go to the fish." Samuel knew she would not listen, so once more he walked to the shore. The sky had turned dark. The wind pushed hard against him. The peaceful sea he had known all his life looked almost black. Samuel called for the fish. Nothing happened. He called again. At last, the golden fish rose from the rough water. What does she want now? Samuel looked ashamed. She wants to rule the sea. The fish remained silent. And she wants you to serve her. For several seconds, only the waves answered. Then the golden fish turned. It disappeared beneath the water without saying a word. Samuel waited. Nothing. He slowly walked home. But there was no palace, no guards, no servants, no golden roof. Only the old hut, the same cracked walls, the same worn door. And outside sat Nora. She was wearing the same old clothes she had worn before the first wish. Beside her was the broken bucket. Inside the hut was an empty table. Nora looked at Samuel. For once, she had nothing to demand. Samuel sat beside her. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Nora whispered, I had everything. Samuel looked toward the sea. No. She frowned. You had many things. He turned toward her. But you never learned how to keep feeling grateful for them. Nora looked at the broken hut and remembered the first table full of bread. How happy she had been that day, and how soon she had started asking for more. Samuel returned to fishing, and the golden fish never appeared again. Life was difficult, but Nora had changed. Whenever she started complaining about something she had once wished for, she remembered the palace and the empty shore. She finally understood that losing everything had not begun with her final wish. It had begun when she got what she wanted, stopped being happy with it, and wanted more. Sometimes the problem is not that life gives us too little. It is that we quickly get used to what we once prayed for. The job you once wanted becomes just work. The home you dreamed about becomes too small. The progress you once celebrated becomes not enough. Wanting to grow is not wrong, but be careful when yesterday's dream becomes today's complaint. If you never stop to value what you have gained, No next level will satisfy you for long. Sometimes happiness is not getting more. It is remembering why what you already have once meant so much. If this story reminded you of something you have stopped appreciating, share it with someone who may need the same reminder.